This week on the Game Adventure podcast, we talk about a rare win for a newly independent studio, some ways that we might navigate a $1,000 future for consoles, and why video games still need demos. Plus, the games worth watching this week. Let's go. The Game Adventure podcast is a family-friendly show that keeps you current in the world of video games. We'll talk about current developer and tech announcements, go through the best ways to play our favorite retro games, and cover an always up-to-date wish list of games to keep an eye out for. We're doing it every week and always in under an hour, so let's go. What is up, everybody? Hope you had a fantastic week. Welcome to the podcast. This is a podcast where we try to find the good in gaming. It is always family-friendly, friendly for all ears listening. So if you're watching this with your kids, fantastic. We're going to try to keep you up to date on all of the events of the last week in the world of video games, or at least the biggest ones. And then also talk about some of the games that have been announced, new technology that's coming out. Today, we've got new speaker technology from Sony, specifically from the PlayStation brand, which is kind of unique. We've got a bunch of games that we're keeping an eye on. It's going to be a really good week. So let's go ahead and dive in to our first segment, which is the industry update. Today, we've got a rare piece of good news. In a difficult season for game studios, Double Fine just gave us reason to celebrate on their behalf. So Double Fine was let go by Xbox a couple of months ago, and it has completed its transition back to being an independent studio again after separating from Xbox. And the really awesome news about this is that the studio gets to keep its intellectual property. It gets to keep its publishing rights, and that includes, this is the wild part, the games that it released while it was owned by Microsoft. So the good news here is that buying games, if you are buying games from Double Fine, games that they've made, we're talking about like Psychonauts, Kiln, Costume Quest, these are the games that they're most well known for. The actual publishing revenue from that goes to this studio, which allows them to keep making games. This is kind of a rare win, and we need to be, I think, as vocal about companies when they're making good decisions as we are when they make bad decisions, right? I think it's good that we criticize companies for making bad decisions that are not like consumer forward, decisions that are not necessarily people forward, the weird ways that they decide to use AI to replace people. Like, we should speak out about those things. But when they make good decisions, like Xbox making this decision to let Double Fine keep the stuff that is going to allow them to continue employing people, making content, we need to applaud that. It's really important that we don't forget to do that. So I give Xbox a little bit of credit, a lot of credit actually, for allowing them to do that, because they didn't have to do that from a business perspective. It's good to remember the layoffs that they had to make in this transition are sad for sure. But being independent actually gives the studio a chance to succeed and maybe grow again. So if you enjoyed, here's my pitch to you. As a lover of independent studios, if you enjoyed Double Fine games, if you played Double Fine games like Psychonauts or Kiln through Game Pass, consider buying those games. If you enjoyed them, go buy those games, because those purchases are going to help sustain the people that are actually there at that studio making games. Next week could reshape our game list, because Xbox is bringing 2 mornings of reveals to Gamescom. Gamescom is a big conference that's happening next week during the week. Xbox in particular is going to stream 2 different days on Wednesday the 26th and Thursday, August 27th. Both of those start at 9 a.m. Central Time. They're going to be on Xbox's YouTube channel if you want to watch them there. Definitely have like a huge lineup. I want to say they have close to 25 games that are being at least talked about. So you've got like Fable, Minecraft Dungeons 2, Star Wars Zero Company, and like Resonance: A Plague Tale Legacy. So tons of games that they've announced they're now going to be showing a little more of. They also have hinted at a significant surprise announcement. So a new entry in a series that they already have. But that remains like a rumor. We don't know what it is yet. And so tune in next week. We'll be talking about that a ton during the podcast. I'm excited to watch these as my schedule allows. I'm especially excited for Minecraft Dungeons 2. I got to play the first one for the first time. I know I'm way behind with my kids last month, I think. And I'm excited to see what they change and do different for Minecraft Dungeons 2. We've also noted that Star Wars Zero Company looks like a fun tactical game that takes the Star Wars universe into kind of a different area. The game Resonance, we're kind of keeping an eye on. It could be interesting. It also, they use the word like visceral to describe it. And so I never know, do you mean like so completely violent that it's almost unplayable? Or is like violence just a natural result of fighting evil, in this game? We'll find out when we see a little bit more of it. So we'll have definitely a good lineup next week of games to actually look at. Another game that was announced 14 years ago, and so 14 years later and $1 billion later, billion with a B, Star Citizen is no longer just an ambitious game. It is a lesson on crowdfunding. Star Citizen has been in development for unbelievably 14 years and has raised $1 billion, and they've done that through crowdfunding. So a recent developer stream displayed the current build, and it actually wasn't very impressive. So it looked very troubled, really buggy. And what's weird is even the developers who were putting on this demonstration were visibly frustrated with the state of the game. So the problem with Star Citizen is its enormous vision just continues to expand. They haven't put out like a conventional finished release. It's in the alpha stage. And so here's the thing about crowdfunding. When you crowdfund something, you're not buying a finished product. You are essentially, I think the safe way to look at this is you're giving somebody the ability to attempt to deliver on a vision, to attempt to kind of develop an idea. And so never pledge money that you are not comfortable losing. For me, when I look at crowdfunding projects, I'm like, depending on the project, yeah, $10, $20 might be a reasonable amount that I can say, I can support them in this. Hopefully I get something out of it. But larger pledges require a lot more caution. A lot more thought about at what point are we getting these deliverables. If I'm going to give you $60 for a game that might not happen, I want to know, do you have a plan for releases? 14 years is too long to make one game. The project has at this point moved beyond just ambition, and it's gotten into something that is so big that it seems like they can't really manage their aspirations effectively. So I'm not saying don't dream big. I'm saying establish some limitations for yourself. There's a law of work that says that when you work will expand to fill the space that you allow it to. So if you give a job 8 hours, it's going to fill that 8 hours. If you give it 4 hours, it's going to be restrained to that 4 hours. So like work tends to expand. The same is with games, I think. A project can expand when you give it 14 years to do so. It becomes unmanageable. So a good example of this, I think, is No Man's Sky. It was very ambitious, but it launched imperfectly. There were a lot of problems with No Man's Sky when it first came out, but they did deliver something real, and they spent the last 10 years improving on it and adding to it and making it bigger. So my advice as a fellow perfectionist who does have big dreams and things that I want to do and I want it to be perfect is to make something achievable and then release it and then keep building, which is honestly kind of what I've done with this podcast. Is I started with just audio only. I've moved into video. I've kind of tried to expand and change and iterate on the way that this podcast works. So that being said, if you have ideas that you think would make this podcast better, that would make it more enjoyable. My kid said, you talk about the industry too much last week. Like there was too much industry news. I just wanted to get to the game list. So, okay, fair point. I will try to talk faster through the industry portion and like select my stories a little more carefully. One last story before we move on. A Happy Meal reward used to mean a plastic toy, but Xbox is actually betting on today's kids wanting something digital and not physical. An Xbox 25th anniversary promotion is bringing Halo, Forza, World of Warcraft digital rewards to McDonald's customers. The promotion right now is limited to the United Kingdom and Ireland instead of the United States. I hope they bring it over here. That might give me a reason to go get some Happy Meals at McDonald's, if that's how that's working. Years ago, I would have been upset, I think, as a kid, if I had gotten a little thing with a code on it instead of a toy. But man, times have changed. if this promotion comes to the United States, I would probably buy a Happy Meal or two for rewards. It's a really fun idea. I like seeing partnerships like this. So from buying Happy Meals to digital rewards to possibly buying a $1,000 console, let's move on to the tech update. A $1,000 console does sound outrageous unless you look at what high-end gaming hardware already costs. So rising component costs have fueled a lot of discussion about what the next generation is going to cost. A lot of speculation about like PlayStation 6 and whatever Xbox's Project Helix ends up being could be looking at a $1,000 starting price for that console, which is a lot more than what we're paying for consoles even today, and sadly, more than we've paid for them in years past. I listened to a little panel of experts talking about 3 different ways that they proposed that you could keep that price below $1,000. So the reality is, if we release things as we always have, and keep technology prices at what they are right now, the next consoles will cost $1,000. There's no way around that higher price, but there are some industry strategies that they could use. So these are not Sony and Microsoft commenting on this. Experts saying, here's some ideas that they could use to keep that price down. Of the 3 that they offered, I'll rank these from the most likely to the least likely. The most likely is to redefine the generation. And that just means keeping the same library, keeping everything pretty much the way it is, but offering a new machine that is the best way to play that. This is kind of like what Xbox did with the Series S and Series X, but they introduced them at the same time. This would be saying our games pretty much stay the same. They continue to work on all of our consoles, but the newest console is going to be the best way to play it. So like you can play it on Series S, but Series X is going to play it a little bit better. I think Microsoft is the one best positioned for this, especially if they're making this similar to upgrading a PC. So if Project Helix is essentially a gaming PC, they are in a great spot to actually do this, because PC gamers for a long time have been able to play the game as long as it meets the minimum requirements. And so if they did something similar like that with the Xbox brand, that would allow them to upgrade the hardware for the people who wanted the cutting edge, but still continue to serve people who weren't buying new hardware. The next most likely, I think, is to wait longer. So if the current consoles remain capable, and I think they are very capable, developers can continue to make excellent games for them, and there's a possibility that Sony and Microsoft could just wait an extra amount of time until some of those component prices go down. The least likely option that they talked about was subsidization, which is when they sell the console at a loss, take a loss on the hardware, and then hope to make it up on the software. I think this is the least likely because they're already doing this. And I don't think they're financially, I think with the rising console prices, they're proving that our business model does not allow us to take a large hit on the hardware. Whether that's because subscription models aren't working, they're not selling enough games, the components are just getting too expensive. I don't know that these companies, as profitable as they have been, are going to be willing to take cuts on how much they make off of the console. Like, there's only so much console loss that you can make up by selling more games. So I think I would be personally less likely to spend that much on a locked-in console like a PlayStation. Part of that is because I'm not a huge PlayStation guy, and so I have to defer to my friends who are PlayStation people and see, like, would you buy $1,000 PS6? I don't know. For me, it might make more sense to buy something that is more like a PC because I can get more use out of it in different areas of my life. And really, if a company like Microsoft wanted to continue offering consoles at a reduced price, they would seriously look at what is it going to take for us to buy a manufacturing capacity instead of just buying from somebody else who's making it. So they've already proven we can, Microsoft has said we can build our own data centers. We can invest heavily in that for AI. So if they really want to keep that console under $1,000, the thing that Microsoft maybe needs to do is invest in chip manufacturing facilities so that they're making their own chips instead of buying the ones that everybody else is essentially buying for AI. So that's an option, but I don't know how feasible that is from a manufacturing standpoint. That's not my area of expertise. Sony's newest PlayStation audio product is not another headset. It's a pair of speakers that you can take with you between different devices. So the Pulse Elevate wireless desktop speakers are launching on November 12th. They look very cool, actually. So they're like $220. Pre-orders open up on September 1st. These are speakers that are designed with PlayStation in mind and desktop, but they have PlayStation Link and Bluetooth, which allows them to not only connect to other sources, but they also have a built-in microphone. So this is really a kind of unique device. It doesn't necessarily appeal to my setup, I guess, because I am comfortable wearing headphones, and I don't really use voice chat very often, so that doesn't matter as much to me. But if you can really switch these speakers seamlessly between different devices, like that's why I love my AirPods in particular, because I can switch between my phone and my iPad and my Mac. I don't know that I would spend $220 on a product like this, but if they really are good speakers with a good low end, I could see these being something that is a very cool addition to your desktop setup that you might be able to, again, justify because it's not just for video games, it's for music and other things as well. So we'll keep an eye on those. One last thing on the tech side, Xbox has added a couple more improvements to their dashboard. Xbox is finally addressing that absurd moment when a wishlist sale alert recommends a game that you already own. I don't know if you've run into this. You probably have if you're an Xbox user. They've tested some other improvements, but the one thing that I was really excited about is in the past, if you built a wish list out with a bunch of games and then during one of the sales you bought a couple of those games, the games stayed on the wish list, which is different from almost every other like online platform. You buy something off a wish list on Amazon and it gets taken off the list, but for some reason it stays on the list with Xbox. So I'm glad that they're finally fixing that. I know it's a minor thing, but these are the kinds of quality of life updates that Xbox needs to continue paying attention to and updating. And maybe some other companies who are very reluctant to change anything on their dashboard or user interface, Nintendo, should pay attention to this because if you're not continually improving your user experience, even on something silly like the dashboard that you do interact with regularly, you're falling behind. So good interfaces matter. But so do the memories and nostalgia that are wrapped up in old games. So let's go ahead and hit rewind for the retro rerun. You cannot understand the magic of Animal Crossing by just playing it once. And Satoru Iwata apparently understood that better than anyone. So if you don't remember Iwata, he was the former Nintendo president. He actually passed away really young at like 55 years old back in 2015. And he was basically a big part of the leadership around certain games of like especially the 3DS era. Worked at Nintendo for a long, long time. He has a long legacy of influencing games. But I thought this story was interesting because it kind of it's anecdotal. So it's from a former employee that kind of told this story. But he wanted the whole organization to understand the beauty of this thing that they had made, which was Animal Crossing. Specifically, it was Animal Crossing New Leaf. And so he said basically to every employee of Nintendo Europe at that point in time when Animal Crossing New Leaf was coming out, that they should play it every day. So he asked them, just here's the game, play it every day for a couple of months before we actually launch the game so that you can understand how this game works. Like you come in on different seasons, you come in on different days of the week, different things are happening. It's something you kind of had to like keep returning to understand how cool it was to have this perpetual world in the Animal Crossing world. You have to return. You have to like watch the world change and become part of the game. And I think it's cool that he wanted his employees to understand what Nintendo had made. He wanted them to understand why it was special. Because when employees understand the accomplishment, they promote it differently. They have like a sense of pride in what the team had created. And so I think Iwata is a good example of somebody who built a really positive environment, who was really passionate about what he was doing, which is, I think, rare anymore. And so it's cool to see stories like this coming out. I loved Assassin's Creed 2, and I accidentally skipped out on the additional content for it because Ubisoft made me think that Brotherhood was a different game. Former creative director for Assassin's Creed 2 talked about, so this game isn't technically retro, it's under 20 years old, but it's getting close. The original plan for Assassins 2 covered a lot more of Ezio's life. And so, like, completing his journey from, like, being born to being a mentor for other people in the game world was too ambitious, they realized. And so what they did was they took that material and they still used it, but they released it as Brotherhood and Revelations. And so here's the thing. I loved Assassin's Creed 2, but I assumed that Brotherhood was like a disposable side game. After playing 2, I was looking for 3. Like, that's the next game in the series that I wanted to play. I would have played this game, though, because I loved Assassin's Creed 2. If it had been communicated that this is a continuation of Ezio's story, either as Assassin's Creed 3 or as an expansion to 2. I know that was kind of in an era when expansions weren't really happening. But like, naming and communication would have helped fans understand what the game actually was. And this also connects to like the Star Citizen story. Build something manageable, ship it, and then expand it afterward, which would have it makes sense why they did what they did with that game. But if they would have communicated it better, then I might have actually dug in. So maybe that's one that makes the game list, and I want to go back into Rome of that time. One of the coolest things about these games, other than the part that it's about an assassin, and yes, there is violence involved, is the like historical ties that it tries to make. The team at Ubisoft really tried to build a world that was fun to explore and walk around in, and it felt authentic to the time, and it was like taking a step back in history. Even if you just decided to walk around and run and jump parkour style off of rooftops, it was a world that was cool to see, and it was really about justice, even though it's a flawed, like, human sense of justice. You can tell that it was reaching for something meaningful even in the midst of that context. So that's one of the reasons I love Assassin's Creed 2. Another game, a solo developer has spent 2 years, and they say sometimes 12 hours a day on a regular basis, rebuilding a Pokemon game. It is impressive, but I have to ask the question, are you okay? Are you doing all right? Pokemon Gamma Emerald is a free Unreal Engine 5 fan remake that was built from scratch by a solo developer. It's a remake of Pokemon Emerald, which was released on the Game Boy Advance. And the developer says this project took 2 years, 12-hour work days. I mean, it contains hundreds of thousands of frames of animation that he made. But because it uses Pokemon's intellectual property and can't be sold because of that, it remains pretty like vulnerable to eventual legal action. Like, Nintendo has been known to take action when it comes to its IP before to protect that. And so I kind of feel like this is a mixed bag. Like, the skill and the passion that has been put into this project is undeniably an accomplishment. I won't argue that at all. But I almost feel like if someone has that much ability and time to invest, why not take a risk on an original idea? Something that's actually yours, an original game that could be sold and supported and become something that the creator actually owns. Fan work can be valuable. I do some like artwork that is based on some of my favorite movies, TV shows, stuff like that. And so that's fine. I'm not against that at all. But if we're talking 12-hour days for 2 years without a sustainable way for people to support the result of that, I don't know if that's a good thing to continue. So it's like, it's cool, but it's also like, are you okay? Please take a break. Please take some time off. That's kind of my thoughts on that. Emulation. So that is one thing to clarify about this, is that this is not emulation. This is something that he really did build from the ground up. It's a standalone piece of software. Emulation, on the other hand, can preserve software, but Socket is trying to preserve the feeling of pulling a cartridge off the shelf. So this is a unique front end from a developer called Detmots. You can find his stuff on YouTube and watch some more videos about what he's doing. But essentially, Socket is an Android game library front end instead of an emulator. So what a front end does is okay, let me explain. The process of using emulators, if you're not familiar with them, is that you bring your own game files, the ROM, and the emulator basically tells a computer or an Android device or whatever you're running it on, it says, I'm going to pretend like I am an original Game Boy Advance or a PSP or whatever the console is. And it runs the game pretending in a software environment like it's that original hardware. The downside is that you can have like 5 different apps for 5 different systems. And every time you want to play a game, you have to open one of those apps and then open the game. And it feels very much, especially on a handheld device, disconnected. And so what a good front end does is it pulls all of that together and displays one like viewing screen, basically, like a dashboard. Like when you log into the Wii, you had all those tiles. When you log into the Switch, you have a very familiar UI. User interface. And so what the front end does is it tries to mimic that. It says, this is what it's going to look like. And then when you hit a Game Boy game, it opens up the emulator in the background and plays that Game Boy game. So this one is unique because it does launch the games through those separate emulators, but the interface looks more like cartridges and discs with both animations and sounds. It includes Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Xbox, Xbox 360. These are some of the additions he's made so far. It's still in like an alpha stage, so it's still being tested. You can see more of it through his Patreon. But what I love about this is that physical games are more than data. Having like the colored plastics, the labels, the artwork, cartridges, discs, it made this feel like an entire world existed inside this little object that you were holding. You're like, wow. The whole world of Pokemon lives right inside this plastic little cartridge, and all I have to do is pop it into my Game Boy, and I'm there. There's something magical about that. Tactile, and so this developer understands that those things matter, not just emulating the game, but making it memorable and like feeling like what you remember. So I've tried a lot of front ends, and this is one that I can't wait to test out on one of my handhelds. It feels just like magical in some way that I can't quite describe. Another thing that feels a little bit like magic is Polaroid film. So you take the picture and then the picture develops right there in front of your eyes and you're able to hand it to somebody. And if you were to add Pokemon to that, it turns into the kind of nostalgia that I can just barely stand. So there's a collaboration between Polaroid and Pokemon that includes these Pokemon themed like Polaroid Go cameras. They're about $100. There's one that includes like a Pokeball themed piece that is $139, so a little more expensive. But basically it includes themed film and accessories. You can see like the Pokemon around the border of some of them. This is not a direct integration with like Pokemon Snap, so it's not part of a video game. It's just connected to the Pokemon franchise. So I think my kids have loved cameras that we've had in the past that like print out, digital cameras that print it out, but this is an actual Polaroid camera. So it's like blending two things that are already full of nostalgia. This might need to go on a Christmas list. If physical media is really going away and buying a game increasingly means that you're buying a license to access it, then I think demos need to become a normal part of gaming again. Now, I'm not saying that the government should require every developer to release a demo. I've talked about my feelings on the government stepping in this case. But as a gaming community, I think we should expect, especially when a game costs $50, $60, $70 or more, something more to understand what it is that we're buying. A trailer simply isn't enough. So like a trailer makes sense for a movie that costs me $15 at the theater and $5 if I want to rent it and watch it. But it doesn't tell me enough about a $70 video game, specifically one that is going to ask for like 50 or 60 hours of my time to experience. I kind of think about it like this. I would rent a hotel room without inspecting it first. Like if I know the brand of the hotel, I have a general idea of what I'm getting. I'm only staying for one night. If it isn't the greatest room in the world, like I'll survive. But by the same logic, I wouldn't rent an apartment for a year without seeing it first. It may still just be a room, but now I'm investing substantially more money and spending more of my life and my time in there. And I think video games are closer to an apartment or a rental. And that doesn't mean that every demo has to work the same way. So if your game lasts dozens of hours, offer a free weekend or a 48-hour trial. If it's a short game that can be completed in just a couple of hours, then provide like a 20-minute demo, something that's representative of one level. Like give me enough time to understand how the game actually feels. And I really especially look for demos with indie games. I might not know the developer. I might not have any idea of kind of what to expect. But if I can play a demo and discover that I enjoy it, I am probably 2 to 3 times as likely to buy the game. Another option would be to bring back rentals as a way for digital games to be played. If a game costs $70, let me rent it for a weekend for 10% of that, $7. If I decide to buy it, then you can apply that $7 toward the purchase. And if I don't, I still supported your work of that particular game, but I also found out that this wasn't one that was for me, which kind of leads me into subscriptions. So I had Game Pass over the summer, and it let me, on the upside, try games that I never would have played otherwise. And I enjoyed experimenting with game streaming, figuring out, like, is this a technology that works with fast enough internet? But I also noticed changes in the way that I played. So having unlimited access to all of these games and paying a monthly subscription actually kind of made me feel like I had to hurry. I had to keep playing the subscription or I wasn't getting my money's worth. And I even felt like guilty when I started to play a Switch game. I started to play Metroid Prime 4 that I got for my birthday because I thought I should really be playing the games that I'm paying this service to have. And so I realized that and I paused my subscription. When I played Metroid Prime 4, I took my time. I explored every corner of the game that I could. I'm still doing that because the game was mine. If life got busy like it did this last week and I didn't get time to play, that was okay. It would still be waiting for me when I returned. And I recognize that maybe subscriptions don't affect everyone that way. But for me, it started to turn games into a list of things to like consume quickly instead of places to enjoy and take my time. It became like the difference between having a nice meal that I was trying to savor and enjoy and going to a buffet where I'm trying to eat as much as I can and get my money's worth. So I think we need to get back to buying games. I really do. I think subscriptions could help us to discover them, but I don't know that they should really replace ownership or at least longer period licenses. Like give us demos, give us free weekends, let us rent a game instead of renting an entire library. Give us what I would call a meaningful chance to like try a game and experience it. And then let us intentionally support those games and the people behind them who have made something that we really love. Fortunately, there are a couple of games on this week's game list that you can try, or at least to put on your radar. So let's go ahead and update the game list. I'm trying to update the way that we do the gaming list to have this be more of a curated list of games that you might want to keep an eye on instead of an endless list of all the games that are possibly out there. So a couple of these games are available on streaming, and they're a good way to check that out in lieu of having a demo available. So Train Sim World 6. If your kids are obsessed with trains, this weekend actually is your chance to discover whether a $50 train simulator is actually something your family is going to enjoy. The full standard edition of Train Sim World 6 is included in the Xbox free play days that last through Sunday, August 23rd. So that's just like today and tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this, for eligible Game Pass members. So if you have Game Pass, take advantage of these free play weekends to try out games. This is broader than the permanently free like Training Center, and it includes the standard edition's routes and content. So you really can get a feel for kind of what this game is about. My kids, some of them more than others, really love trains. My daughter, my 4-year-old in particular, loves trains. So I almost want to like show her this just for the sake of showing her a train game. But honestly, it can be hard to justify spending $50 on something that's really niche like this without kind of knowing whether the game is going to hold their attention or actually be something they want. But this is an opportunity to play it together, give it a trial, decide whether it's worth buying. I really support free play days for exactly this reason. It lets you try things that you might otherwise not have any idea about. Another game that has a longer free trial is Battlefield 6. So I have never been a competitive shooter person. It's just not something that I've had the time to get into, but a free week might actually get me onto the battlefield for a little while. A free trial runs from August 18th through the 25th on Xbox, PS5, and PC. It lets you play against like 6 different modes across 4 different maps. So it's a pretty great way to do a trial, actually, because you have enough time to actually get into it. This one's definitely not a family recommendation. Hopefully that's obvious. But it is a tactical military game. It's built around teamwork. A lot of people have fun working together in battlefields. I have not jumped in on the Battlefield train at any point because I'm just not fast enough, and I haven't invested the time in like competitive shooters as a whole, because I just don't have the time to get good at it, and you kind of have to put in some time to get good if you're going to enjoy a competitive shooter. However, a free trial could persuade people like me to try something for an hour or two that I have never played before and wouldn't just purchase blindly. So I think it's really brilliant. You have nothing to lose by offering a free trial like that. One of the most colorful Souls-like games, or they say a Shells-like game, on Game Pass is leaving soon. But families with older kids might still have time to finish it. So the game Another Crab's Adventure is leaving the Game Pass on Xbox and PC on August 31st. So as of right now, you've got a little less than 2 weeks to play that. This is a Souls-like underwater game. It takes about 15 to 20 hours. So Souls-like games are known for being really difficult, skill-based combat, but it has a lot of adjustable assists, like sliders to change how difficult this actually is. I will say this game is rated teen for some like alcohol and tobacco references, fantasy violence, a little bit of language. So this is like, I will say the language from what I have seen is relatively minor. Think like 1980s PG language here and there, but parents should know that it's there, even though it looks like a cartoon. This is not necessarily a game for young kids for sure. So if you want to check it out now, you might not have time to like finish it before it leaves, but you should know after a week whether or not you actually want to go and buy this when you need to purchase it instead of play it on Game Pass. The next great choice-driven space RPG game might not be Mass Effect. It might actually be The Expanse, Osiris Reborn. So this is an action RPG that we've heard a lot about over the last year or so. It's coming in spring 2027 on PC, PS5, and Xbox. It is going to be an Xbox Game Pass day one launch. If you're familiar with the world of The Expanse, this was based on a series of novels about the future of space travel. It's really like very realistic around what would actually happen to people if we lived in space. But it's also got this like political intrigue between people who live on Earth, people who live in like the asteroid belt, and people from Mars. So it's a really interesting world. I think Amazon actually made a TV series from it that I'm not sure if it finished running or not, but I watched a season of that. That was really good. The idea behind this game is that decisions have lasting consequences. So it doesn't let the player basically get on everybody's good side, which is realistic. Like, you're gonna end up on somebody's bad side with some decision that you make. The setting and the content definitely mature. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of difficult themes in the Expanse universe. But I think for adults, this might be a game that is one that makes you think. So decisions cost something. Like, this resembles real life more than like endlessly replaying a choice until everybody is happy. It's very gritty, but I think it gives the player an opportunity to think really carefully about the choices that you're making. And try to make life better for people in this like very broken world of different decisions. So that's one that I'm keeping an eye on. I'm excited to see a little more about kind of what the game entails when it launches next year. A really beautiful cooperative RuneScape game is finally coming to consoles. The fact that it's not an MMO might be its strongest selling point for me. So this is a survival crafting game, and it's leaving early access. It launches September 15th on PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox, even Switch 2. It does support solo play, but it also supports online co-op for up to 4 players. And they're including cross-platform multiplayer, or at least that's planned. It is scheduled to come to the game streaming services as well, so like Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus. The Steam reception has been really encouraging from this one. I am interested in this specifically because it has co-op, but it's not a MMO, so it's like a little more limited in scale of how much time you actually need to spend in this game. It looks really beautiful. It's kind of cartoony, kind of not. I think it could be landing somewhere in the middle for families. I think it's rated teen. We'll have to see whether that's a teen because there's cartoon violence or because there's other content that maybe is only better for older kids. But it looks like fun. The name of the game is RuneScape Dragon Wilds. I have never played a Kingdom Hearts game, true story, but Pixar's Coco might finally give families a reason to kind of put the 4th one on their radar if you've never played one of these before. At Disney's big D23 conference with all, you've probably, if you're like me, your wife has sent you a handful of videos now from various Disney princesses singing their songs on stage in real life from this conference, but they did actually talk about Kingdom Hearts a little bit. The release window for this is sometime in late 2027, so it's a little ways out there. There's also another speculation that maybe the world of Cars comes into play, but I don't know if that's true or not. But the world of Coco certainly is going to be one of the settings for this game, so I would keep that on your watch list. We'll find out more as the game gets a little closer to release. Matt Groening says The Simpsons Hit and Run is coming back, but somebody may have told him more than he was supposed to say. At D23, again, Matt Groening said that the original game was returning in some form, but then a showrunner said, oh, we don't know that for sure. No publisher has announced a remake. There's no official announcement. So I think Matt Groening probably is somebody who knows more than he was supposed to say. And I'm kind of glad that this kind of snuck out as a rumor, because this game was a ton of fun. The original was. I would love to see this come back to modern consoles. So keep it on a watch list. No promises yet, but that if Matt Groening's saying something about it, there's a good chance that the rumors are true, or at least partially true. For the Indie Minute this week, there's a game called The Lantern of the Laughless Saint. Man, that's a mouthful. So while Bethesda keeps us waiting for The Elder Scrolls 6, this is a small studio that stepped up and stopped waiting and has created its own strange, old-school fantasy world. This game makes you feel like you are watching Morrowind, if you remember that one from back in the day, but they decided not to remake Morrowind or try to do like a fan port of the game. There's a couple of those in existence out there, mostly mods for the original. This is an original game though, so it entered Steam Early Access on August 17th for only $20. Its design is really like focused on exploring and not being quite so on the nose with things, telling you what to do next. You hear like rumors and you discover maps and you discover like objective markers and you figure it out and have to put it together yourself. So I think the early reviews for this are encouraging. Obviously, it's still pretty early in its life, and so they're trying to, patch a bunch of stuff and figure it out. But the older games that inspired this style of game were like genuinely challenging, and so it'll be interesting to see whether this captures an audience for how difficult that style of game was, where you really have to use your brain and think through. That's actually one thing I've noticed about Metroid Prime 4 that is kind of something I haven't liked as much, is that they really do give you like an ongoing walkthrough where, the guy will pop on the radio frequently and say, hey, if you don't know what to do, you can call me and I'll tell you where you should go next. And like, what? No, I'm going to figure out where I want to go next. I'm going to suffer and struggle through. Leave me alone and leave me miserable. I'm going to figure this out on my own. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe everybody likes to be told exactly where to go. I will definitely pull up the occasional walkthrough and say, where in the world am I supposed to go? And I pull those walkthroughs up mostly out of spite that I'm not going to listen to this guy who says he's going to give me the answers. I'm going to go find them myself on the internet like a grown man. So there you go. But anyway, back to this game. I love that a small creator can be like inspired by a game and make something that is actually their own. So keep an eye out on this one. I might have to try to pull together a little more information on it as it gets closer to a full release. If the future of Mass Effect has worried you like it has me with the acquisition of EA and BioWare, maybe stop following just the franchise and start following the people who have made that franchise in the first place. That's something we've talked about in the past. Studio Reset is the name of this company that was founded by veterans who include in their credits games like Mass Effect, Dragon Age, The Long Dark, Anthem, like a lot of credibility to this group of people. This is it's a game about a supernatural mystery adventure. It's still in early development. There's no announced release date for it yet. Players will manage like a paranormal investigation agency, assign agents. They said we're kind of playing off of like X-Files type of vibes if you liked that show. But they're also trying to explore deeper themes like grief and death and trauma and like the aftermath of violence. And they're presenting it through investigation instead of through direct action. So this could be one that really tells a story. And I would encourage folks to, like, if you like a game, look up the people who are behind that game, the writers, the people who are the artists, the story developers, and find out what games they're working on next and kind of like follow their work. That is a lot of times a much better way to find your next favorite game instead of just waiting for the next sequel to come out. Follow developers, not just franchises. And I think you'll be in a better place to actually find new games and enjoy them. That's pretty much going to do it for us this week. If you want to keep finding the good in gaming with us, you can head to thegameadventure.com and join our free email list. You get early access to the video edition of the podcast, an invitation to our Discord server when it goes live, and we kind of get to be digital pen pals, which is fun. So I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you next week, same time, same place. I need to get me one of those like clapboard things. Here we go. Ha! This is a serious podcast for serious people. Ha! Seriously love to drink coffee. Ha! I'm just kidding. If you don't like to drink coffee, that's okay. It doesn't bother me. It leaves more coffee for me, really. Ugh. I need a co-host.